Talking head videos are everywhere in 2025.
What separates successful people?
If you currently need Twitch,
They're probably the most popular type of long-form content, but almost all of them are suffering from bad storytelling.
called the story economy. If you're setting up some tools in Act 1 or they should pay off. It feels like a Murder Your Darlings moment.
Today we're talking about storytelling.
So in this video, I want to show you guys how to take your talking head videos from this
Hey guys, Dr. Nate here at Thrive Dental and Orthodontics.
to this.
How do braces actually work? How do braces actually move your teeth?
There are 5 keys to creating a great talking head video, and they're the same tactics that almost every Hollywood movie uses. And I absolutely guarantee you that if you stick around, you'll learn so much, not just about talking head videos, but storytelling principles that will help you think about editing in general. My name's John, and I'm the founder of John Hague Media, and I believe in the power of story, and so I want to help people to tell them better. We're going to touch on what I call the 5 S's, 5 areas that'll make your talking head videos flat out unskippable. Story, sound, sizzle, scene, and sabotage. Let's start with story, because if your story doesn't connect, nobody's sticking around for the rest. Most editors aren't treating their talking head videos like movies, and it's really hurting their content. Take this scene for example.
Look at me, son. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. All right? It's not your fault.
How's that for good storytelling? Would you watch that movie? Now how about this?
I know. It's not your fault. All right? It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Don't fuck with me. It's not your fault. Don't fuck with me, all right?
Which video to you feels like it resonates? But this is what you're doing in your videos. You're cutting out all of the emotion, the pauses, there's no rhythm. Friends, if we want people to remember what we're saying, the only way is to break through to people's emotions. Your talking head videos need to include rhythm, pacing, and things like that. Next, murder your darling.
You're in the Murder Your Darlings.
Stories move forward. If your script is slow paced, cut that down a lot in the edit, especially in the first minute. You want the pacing to be fast moving. Alright, again, let's do a side by side. This is a video that Solus, one of our editors at John Hague Media, did, and here's a similar edit that we tasked an external editor with.
Pullman Movie Theater shuts its doors for good.
Regal Cinemas is closing all its locations.
Filed for bankruptcy protection, citing poor attendance, streaming.
Whether the financial strain
survived, closing more than
2,000 movie theaters
shutting down,
closing
the closure.
struggling to
What's the biggest difference between these two clips? It's this principle. Almost every inexperienced editor tells instead of showing. What do I mean by this? Do you see how in this one example there's basic b-roll and text, but in Solus's example it's almost as if the editing is extending the narrative. He's showing visuals that don't repeat, they extend. Bad storytelling repeats what's being said and the visuals are not really relevant, whereas good storytelling seems to extend the world and create emotional resonance. So your job as an editor is to show the implications or the reality of what the idea being discussed looks like. Alright, let's dive into a recent talking head project we've been working on, and I'm gonna guide you through some of the emotional beats of this video. Essentially, you want to figure out the main story beats of the video and highlight those, because you'll be using those narrative beats as tools in your editing process. Now that we're here, we can also touch on pacing. It's so important to make sure that your video has life in it. It needs to change rhythm. If it's all going slowly, or if it's speeding along like a bullet train, you're making for a boring video. Look guys, all I really want you to take from this section is that a talking head video really is a story. So treat it with heart, right? Get creative, go wild. But the story is still no good without great sound. So how do you make sure you're crushing it on the audio? In order to get great sounding quality on your audio, you need to be thinking about sound like it's a cake. The sound in your videos needs to have depth, but what most editors are doing is they add a single sound effect and they leave it at that. But layering sound allows you to create totally different scenes. Compare these two clips for example.
To reload one of these bad boys, you would have to retrieve your powder, measure it out, and precisely pour it down the barrel, insert a new lead ball, stuff a piece of cloth or paper into the barrel, then, using a ramrod, ram the ball firmly into place. Prime the pan by adding a small amount of gunpowder to the flash pan, cock the flintlock, then, finally, aim and fire. And to reload one of these bad boys, you would have to retrieve your powder, measure it out, and precisely pour it down the barrel, insert a new lead ball, stuff a piece of cloth or paper into the barrel, then, using a ramrod, ram the ball firmly into place. Prime the pan by adding a small amount of gunpowder to the flash pan, cock the flintlock, then, finally, aim and fire.
Certain sounds resonate in particular ways. For example, digital sounds make you think of UI environments. So if you're creating an outdoor video, make sure the sound effects fit your visual world. Dark tones and colors should have darker sounding, more moody sound effects, and vice versa. Quick tip, I got this from Herman Huang, but I used to put the voiceover on the timeline and then manually lower the background music and call it a day. But actually what you can do is use the de-esser effect to carve out a space in the mid frequencies of your music track, and that way your dialogue naturally sits in that pocket. Music. Here's where most editors go wrong. They think that any track is fine, but that's not true. Your music needs to be very sensitive to the direction and the tone of the story. If your video is a fast-paced documentary, then faster, more tense and emotional music is necessary. But if the video you're working on is a travel vlog, then adventurous, happy and exciting music is your go-to. Music carries the whole mood and emotion of any video, so it's absolutely essential that it feels appropriate. What good music does is it communicates an emotion. So think about what emotion you'd like the viewer to experience. Your background track should also be changing. Different sections communicate different ideas, and so you need to be switching your backtrack from section to section accordingly. But that won't even matter if you get the first 15 seconds of your video wrong. It's incredibly important to grab attention, and so the first 15 seconds of your video, the music should generally be quite loud and fast-paced. If you don't do this, viewers will click off and you'll lose your audience. I generally recommend changing the song 2 to 3 times in the first minute of the video, or at least changing the section of the song. Sizzle. Simplicity over everything.
Simplicity itself.
Guys, more complex scenes will not help you tell a better story. Make sure you've got a maximum of 3 elements at a time on screen. As an editor, it's your job to guide the eyes of the viewer through your animation, and so if there's too much going on, they will get overwhelmed and lost. We get it, you're great at After Effects, but what being great really means is using your skill with discipline. Keep things minimal. There's nothing worse than being overwhelmed with 1,000 things happening at the same time. The goal of animation is to visually extend the world that the speaker is talking about. Because like I said, bad editors repeat, but great editors extend. Keyframing is your best friend, and think smooth.
This has to be really smooth.
In almost all situations, you want things to feel smooth and not jarring. So make sure your elements have intro and exit animations, and don't allow a viewer to get lost in jarring, jerky animations. Scene. Okie dokie, let's just jump right in. Branding. Hey, if this is the brand guideline, make sure there isn't a sudden splotch of blue. Every element and color should feel in sync with the overall theme of the video. I've gone through hundreds of trial projects with hopeful editors for John Hague Media, and this is probably the mistake we see most consistently. Always think in terms of clarity. If a text is supposed to be a title, it should always be seen that way. So titles and subtitles should never have the same size and font weight. This plays into the idea of visual hierarchy. Visual hierarchy refers to organizing elements to guide the viewer's eyes and prioritize information, making it clear what is most important. It's a way to arrange visual elements to create a clear order of importance, ensuring that viewers know what to focus on first. Make sense? Very important. Rule of thirds. Very useful. Divide your screen into 3 horizontal and 3 vertical lines. This will help you a lot in creating visually balanced compositions. It also allows you to more easily guide a viewer's eye from scene to scene. Important note, if one scene focuses on the top right, the next scene should definitely not be on the bottom left, because the viewer can't change their point of attention so quickly. Your job is to guide their eyes throughout the whole video. Sabotage. Alright, that's all well and good, but if you don't know some of the broken patterns of editing we all fall into from time to time, this may not be helpful. So real quick, here are some of those. Sounds simple, but don't be boring. Change up your scenes. Make sure you have variety in the way that you're showing things visually. Backgrounds, lower thirds, cut-ins, picture-in-picture shots, B-roll, and so on. Seeing or hearing the same thing 20 times over gets really boring. So this applies to sound effects too. Copying. Hey, come on guys, it feels nowadays like everyone is copying. Imangaji became popular, and then all of a sudden everyone and their grandma is wanting to edit like him. Why not come up with your own style? Be creative and stand out from the crowd. Oversized text. Yeah, we've all been there, me too, but oversized text treats our viewers like kids. They want to see classy, minimal titles or visual elements that feel appropriate, not like Aunt Marge from Harry Potter. Please stop using the 1500 zoom transitions pack. It doesn't look good. In general, please stop using most transitions. Just a simple whoosh, a cut, or a light leak will be best 99% of the time. Level your audio properly, friends. Your sound effects are too loud. Trust me, minimalism is generally the way to go. Also, watch your dialogue. Sometimes I'll send trial projects to editors, and when I watch it back, I sound more like a troll than myself.
Turn around in the dungeon!
Editing a great talking head video is easier said than done, but I also think that unfortunately in our online space, there are a lot of really bad habits that have found their way into the editing community. Essentially, I hope this helps you guys think about the story process that's behind editing a talking head video.